Hello, friends. Pastor Bill Walden here with Build Up the Church. This is a devotional word for July 20th, 2024. This is out of the book of Acts, chapter 23. In Acts chapter 23, the Apostle Paul has sought to speak to his Jewish brethren in the temple area. It turned into a riot. He was arrested. He tried again to speak to the leaders of the Jewish movement in Jerusalem. It turned into a huge argument and almost riotous. And so he was once again put into protective custody. It has been determined that he will be sent to Caesarea, to the regional headquarters of the Roman Empire, where they will begin to listen to the charges being brought against him. In Acts chapter 23, verse 11, Jesus stood by Paul in the prison and said, "Paul, be of good cheer. For as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must also bear witness at Rome." And so the Lord basically said this: I'm not done with you. It doesn't matter what they're planning against you. I'm not done with you. And you're fine until you're done. And so the Apostle Paul was greatly encouraged, of course. The next day, there was a group of 40 assassins that planned to not eat or drink until they had killed Paul. History tells us that there were Jewish zealots that would kill Roman soldiers in the streets, in the crowded streets of Jerusalem. They would just keep daggers on hand, and it would be kind of like a quick assault, and then they'd be lost in the crowd. And so it is suspected by historians that it was this type of group that wanted to ambush Paul. And they made a plan. They went to the Jewish leaders and they said, "Request Paul to come to you, and as they're coming on the way with soldiers, we'll kill him. And we're not going to eat or drink until he's dead." And so this was their plan. But Jesus had already told Paul, "You're going to testify of me in Rome." So no group of assassins was going to be able to kill Paul until his mission for life was done. We read a very interesting story here in verse 16. It says, "So when Paul's sister's son heard of their ambush," so Paul's nephew, somehow he heard of the ambush. What are the chances? I mean, humanly speaking, 1 in a million. Godly speaking, 1 in 1. It's absolutely going to happen that Paul is going to be rescued. And so Paul's sister's son heard of their ambush. He went and entered the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him." So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to say to you." And so the commander took him by the hand, went aside, asked privately, "What is it that you have to tell me?" So I'm just seeing God's fingerprints all over this thing. What are the chances that Paul's nephew is going to hear about such a plot? How does that even happen? But he does hear about it. Why is he even in close proximity to 40 dedicated assassins? But he hears about it somehow, and he goes and tells Paul, and Paul tells the centurion, and the centurion takes the boy to the commander, and the commander starts interviewing him. And the boy says this in verse 20, "The Jews have agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. But do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait, men who have bound themselves by an oath that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for the promise from you." So the commander said to the boy, commanding him, "Tell no one that you have revealed these things to me." Now watch what happens. Talk about, I want to use the word overkill, but that seems inappropriate at this point. Talk about the extreme measure that God displays to Paul as he is now going to be escorted by 470 Roman soldiers down to Caesarea. The commander called for 2 centurions, "Prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the 3rd hour of the night," so kind of in the middle of the night exit from Jerusalem. "Provide mounts to set Paul on, so Paul doesn't have to walk, he gets to ride, and bring him safely to Felix the governor." And he wrote him a letter explaining what he was doing. And the main point in this thing is, once again, poor choice of words, the overkill, the extreme measures that God uses, not only to protect Paul. I mean, God didn't need anybody to protect Paul, but he's even willing to use Romans to protect Paul. What a show of force against the 40 trained assassins. If they're connecting the dots in their minds, they've got to be thinking, this guy's untouchable. And it all happened through the eavesdropping of Paul's nephew. Somehow Paul's nephew heard about this. Ray Stedman, in his commentary, has a real funny thing to say, that Paul was relatively safe. He was saved by a relative. God uses a little boy to speak to a centurion, to speak to a commander who gets 470 trained Roman soldiers, and those 40 assassins must have gone hungry for a while until they decided it wasn't going to work. What's the point in this? Back to verse 11. Jesus had said, "Be of good cheer, Paul. For as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, you've done well. You're also going to do well. You're going to bear witness at Rome." Guys, run in your lane. If you're a Christ follower, run in your lane. Seek the Lord for his call for your life. How important it is that we have godly dads, godly moms, godly grandparents, godly children. How important it is that we have strong churches. How important it is that we have honest pastors that don't seek the glory but want to give the glory to God, and churches that gather together not to be entertained but to seek the Lord and to love one another and to learn how to serve one another. Let's all run in our lanes. Let's cross the finish line kind of with our hands lifted high. And until we're done with our race, nothing can stop us. So I pray, if you're a Christian, seek the Lord about the mission for your life. Whatever it is, it may seem unglamorous, but it's so important. You have to wonder about, and I have never read about Charles Spurgeon's parents, but you have to wonder, did they have any idea the son that they were raising? Did Billy Graham's parents have any idea the son that they were raising? Did Greg Laurie's parents have any idea? Mother, actually, there was no father in his life, or no father present in his life. Did his mom have any idea the kind of son she was raising? And then God even goes beyond sometimes our tough childhoods. And he puts a calling on our lives. So Christian, seek the Lord. What is your life all about? And then nobody can stop you until the day it's time to go home. Some things for you to think about. Thanks for watching.